Pleasant good morning to the members of the media who have joined us here, and of course, those of you viewing and listening across social media platforms, and welcome to the Office of the Opposition Leaders press conference. My name is Simon Inobriga. I am joined today by Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Northeast, Colin Burt, Member of Parliament for St. Anne's East, Mrs. Dr. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly, and the Member of Parliament for Luca Lupino, Chairman of the People's National Movement, Marvin Gonzalez. Today we will be dealing with important matters in the public domain, and moving along, I would like to ask the Member for Diego Martin Northeast to join us at the podium to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I thought it was necessary to speak at this press conference today because of the misinformation that is in the system with respect to exactly what occurred during a sitting of the House of Representatives on Friday, the 21st of November. What I've seen in the newspapers is the Minister of Public Utilities making statements regarding what has occurred, which are the most polite words I could use to describe his statements are blatant lies. Now, I want to make a point to the media in general. I notice from time to time, this does not happen with all media houses, does not happen with all reporters either, that from time to time the media would simply report whatever nonsense is said by a member of the current government without doing any investigation to determine whether there's any credibility with respect to what that particular government member is saying. In the case of Mr. Padarat, this is not the first time that he has told untruths. I have personal experience with him where in June of this year, 2025, he made statements alleging that I had spent over $1 million renovating the office of the Minister of Public Utilities on Alexandra Street. Totally untrue. The figure was a fraction of that, a small fraction of that. And what happened afterwards was very unfortunate. I prepared a letter, which I sent to the Speaker, outlining the facts, recording what the minister said, where he said I'd spent $1 million on this and it was a waste of taxpayers' money and so on and so on and so on. And I attached the estimate for the job, the quotation, and provided documentary evidence that the actual cost was, as I said, a fraction of that, $160,000. And I asked that the minister be referred to the Privileges Committee for reasons which are still unclear, because I've received no communication from the Speaker on this other than to say that I would not be allowed to raise the matter of privilege, which is very unusual. In my 33 plus years in the Parliament, I have not experienced that, where a member is of the view that another member has committed a contempt of the Parliament and the Speaker does not allow the member to even raise the matter. Normally, in almost every other case that I have experienced, the member is allowed to raise the matter and then the Speaker either makes an immediate decision that it is not sufficient to refer the matter to the Privileges Committee, or the Speaker reserves his or her decision for another time and then makes a decision again, either referring the member to the Privileges Committee or not. But the idea that a member could bring documentary evidence that another member has committed a contempt and the member is not even allowed to raise it is something I've not experienced before. I think Mr. Gonzalez, MP Gonzalez, had the same experience with another matter, and I expect him to explain that when he comes up. But my letter to the Speaker was dated the 27th of June, where I attached the documentary evidence. So coming now So that is an example of Mr. Padarat not telling the truth. I've seen reports in The Guardian today, and I've seen reports in the Newsday, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where Mr. Padarat is alleging that the reason the Prime Minister said that she would cuff me down was because I was molesting her politically. I saw that in one paper, and now today I'm seeing that I was constantly and continuously hurling abuse at the Prime Minister, and this is why she reacted. And what is unfortunate about those lies is that commentators who don't know better, who do not expect government ministers to lie, are picking up on that. And I actually saw a commentator today saying that, well, the Prime Minister is only human, and if she was being subjected to that level of abuse, you know, she reacted emotionally. Completely false, because it never happened. So I urge the media to go and check the PALView website. That is the broadcast of parliamentary proceedings. The video is still there, has not yet been removed. And if you go to the broadcast of November the 21st, 2025, and you look at the time, and I've asked my staff to pull up the time, and the point I want to make is the Prime Minister was not in the Parliament until very late in the day. The Prime Minister did not show up until well after 5 o'clock. From my memory, we went to the tea break at approximately 4:30, more or less, and returned 45 minutes later. And up to the time that the House adjourned for tea, the Prime Minister was not there. And I've asked my team to pull up the video evidence to run it from 2:53. Is it running? Can reporters see? You see what's on the screen?
Yeah, well,
You're seeing the Attorney General, right?
no, it's frozen up. So just as begun.
Of the Attorney General.
Honorable Attorney General.
So this is just before the break. Break on Friday. As I said, it should be around 4:30.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Standing Order
Are you seeing the empty chair next to
64-1B,
the Attorney General?
I beg to move
That's the Prime
that the
Minister's
next
chair.
stage of the Home
This proves
Invasion,
she was
Self-Defense and
there.
Defense of Property Bill 2025 be taken on Wednesday,
I want to show
November the
that we go to the break
26th,
after this.
2025.
Honorable members, the question is that the next stage of the Home Invasion, Self-Defense and Defense of Property Bill 2025 be taken on Wednesday, November 26, 2025. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. I now propose to take the tea break. We will return at 5:18. Let's round it off to 5:20.
So my thoughts were correct. We took the break at about 4:43, something like that. Sorry, 3:33. 4:33, sorry, 4:30. So because we're coming back at 18 minutes or 20 minutes past 5. So it's a 45-minute break. The point of this is to show that up to that time, which is just after 4:30 p.m., 3 hours after the commencement of the Parliament, the Prime Minister was not in the Parliament. So that this lie that I was hurling insults at her across the table, non-stop, I've brought the video evidence. Let's now go to what occurred later on. And could you run the segment with the offending statements, please?
Virtual asset.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to report that the Virtual Assets and Virtual Asset Service Providers Bill 2025 was considered in the Committee of the Whole and approved with amendments. I now beg to move that the House agree with the committee's report.
Members, the question is that this House agree with the committee's report on the Virtual Assets and Virtual Asset Service Providers Bill 2025. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it.
Prime Minister says division. I don't see it.
Minister of Finance.
And she says division.
Division. All right. A division having been called for, the clerk will take the.
So what happened was, at the end of the committee stage, the Prime Minister called for a division of votes. Now, a division of votes is a record of who voted for the bill, who voted against it, and if there are any abstentions, there's also a record of abstentions. And that is done when you want to make sure that there's a permanent record of exactly how members of the government voted and members of the opposition voted. We thought that this was important in this particular case because the history of this sitting was very interesting. We had gone there to debate a bill dealing with virtual assets, which is essentially cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and so on. And the bill that had been laid in the Parliament and the bill that we had been told would be debated just had 12 clauses. When the Minister of Finance was introducing the bill and making his contribution, he started to refer to clauses that were not in the bill. So clause 35, clause 38, the bill only had 12 clauses. So that I then got up and told the Speaker that the Minister of Finance is referring to clauses that are not in the bill. We then discovered that the government had prepared amendments to the bill, 48 pages eventually it turned out, over 200 changes, completely changing the character of the bill. Because the bill in its form that was given to us, and we were told this would be debated, was a nonsense bill. It really offended all of the requirements of the Financial Action Task Force and so on. So we are there to debate a 12-clause bill and then discover we are debating a bill with, it turns out, about 38 clauses. And some of those clauses are so long, new clauses we've never seen. One clause alone, clause 38, had 15 subclauses. I actually, when we eventually got it, because I said this is ridiculous, we can't respond to something that we have not seen. So eventually the Speaker suspended the sitting and for 10 minutes and called upon the government to supply us with this list of amendments. We eventually got the list maybe 3 or 4 minutes before the sitting resumed to discover they were 48 pages long. Now again, in my 33 years, I have never seen 48 pages of amendments to anything. Never. Far less 48 pages of amendments that there was no notice of. So when we started to look at them, I counted all the substantial changes, over 200. So we said, oh, this doesn't make any sense. This is a farce. How could we possibly debate 48 pages of amendments that we've never seen? This doesn't make any sense. So we realized the government was just going to railroad the thing through. It was a contempt of Parliament as far as I am concerned, to just drop 48 pages of amendments on us without notice. So when we got to the end, we, the opposition, wanted it recorded that we were not supporting this bill because it was a completely different bill and we'd never seen it before. That is why I called for division, to make sure there was a record of our votes against the bill. The Prime Minister also called for division because I guess she also wanted to record either the government's support for the bill or the opposition lack of support for the bill. The Speaker did not seem to notice that both I and the leader of the government, the Prime Minister, had called for division. The Prime Minister actually called for the division twice. If you listen to the tape very carefully, you'll see that she calls for it twice, I called for it once. When I realized, or when it appeared to me, that the Speaker was proceeding without the division, in other words, just saying, the ayes have it, any against, instead of recording the names of the persons who would vote against or for, I then spoke to the Speaker. I wasn't speaking to the Prime Minister at all. And prior to this, I had no interaction with her whatsoever. So this idea that's out there from Mr. Padarat that I was hurling abuse at her nonstop is a total blatant, it's a ridiculous lie. I would go far as to say it's a horrible lie. I spoke to the Speaker. I said, Mr. Speaker, I'm using my right hand and I'm gesturing to the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, both the Prime Minister and I have called for division, and I used my left hand and gestured towards the Prime Minister so he would understand what I was saying. So I'm not talking to the Prime Minister, I'm talking to the Speaker. I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, both the Prime Minister and I have called for division. We need to have a division. That's all. So I am there, left hand gesturing towards the Speaker, right hand gesturing towards the Speaker, left hand gesturing towards the Prime Minister, just to assist the Speaker to understand that what I'm telling him is that both I and the Prime Minister wanted a division. And then this whole thing begins, where I must say, I've never experienced anything like this. I've seen it all in the Parliament where I thought I had seen it all. But I don't know what happened. I am there telling the Speaker, look, the Prime Minister also asked for a division. I'm trying to assist the process. The Prime Minister says, don't point at me. What? So I say, well, why not? I mean, you hear it on the audio. They're confused because I was talking to the Speaker and telling the Speaker the Prime Minister has also called for a division, and she says, don't point at me. So why not? And she says, because I will cuff you down. And she went on to say afterwards, come outside, implying that she would cuff me down outside. That's there as well. That is what happened. So I would like the media, if you don't believe me, go and look at the video of the proceedings that is in the public domain on the PAL View website. You will see nothing and you will hear nothing other than what I just said. And I think it's reprehensible of Mr. Padarat to tell these outrageous lies. I just thought I would say this. And I saw the UNC Women's Arm put out a statement, obviously listening to Mr. Padarat, listening to his lies and believing them, and more or less supporting the Prime Minister for saying that she will cuff me down. Now, I want to make a point, because there's so much mischief outside there, and I can't understand why Mr. Padarat will double down on his lies, but then he's done it before, so maybe it's a habit. So I want to make a point. In the United Kingdom, a threat of violence against an MP by another MP is considered one of the most serious contempts of Parliament. In fact, in doing some research this morning, I discovered that the UK House of Commons had set up a commission to look at what should be done when MPs are threatened with violence, whether by strangers, people from outside, or whether by MPs from inside. And this has attracted the attention of the UK Parliament since 2023. And I think the Commission has either submitted its final report or is about to submit its final report. But the sanctions that are recommended when one MP or a stranger threatens another MP with violence go so far as expulsion from the Parliament. It depends on how serious the threat is. Starts with a reprimand from the Speaker. Then it goes to suspension from the House for a period of time. Then, depending on how serious the threat is, I guess somebody would say, I will find a gun and kill you dead or something like that. It ends up with expulsion from the Parliament. So this is a very, very serious matter. And one of the reasons why it is so serious is that threatening violence against a member of Parliament brings the House into odium and contempt. It's a contempt against the dignity of the Parliament. So I thought I would just come here and tell you what the truth is. Check for yourself. And I have colleagues who were there with me. Dr. Dolly was on my left, and Mr. Gonzalez was on my right. So I am sure they will also confirm what you see for yourself, with your own eyes, and what you hear with your own ears from the video. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. Just as a matter of housekeeping, of course, when we are finished with the presentations by the MPs present, the media will be invited to ask questions. There's a microphone that will be passed around, and we are asking the reporters, please wait until the microphone is in your hand before posing your questions so that the viewing public will be able to hear the question properly. Can I ask MP Gonzalez to come to the podium now, please?
Thank you, my colleague from Diego Martin Central. Good morning, members of the media. Good morning to my colleagues, Dr. Diane Gadsby-Dolly and Mr. Colm Imbu in the Parliament. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. So this morning I would like to deal with a couple of matters that are in the public domain with respect to what transpired in Parliament as Mr. Imbu rightly described a short while ago. And I would just add my little 2 cents on it, as we say in local parlance, as a witness to what transpired in the Parliament. I also want to comment on recent press reports, yesterday I think it was, where the Minister of Homeland Security is threatening that the government intends, or rather he will go to the Attorney General and ask for legislation to be passed to regulate online commentators, bloggers, etc. And of course, one of the local media houses intercepted communications from the Minister of Homeland Security where he has called for the revocation of visas by certain online commentators. So I would like to say some words on that on behalf of the People's National Movement, because the leader of the PNM, the opposition leader, issued a very comprehensive statement on this particular issue. And the third matter I would like to address briefly is another statement that was made in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago last Friday. On this occasion, not by the Prime Minister, but another senior cabinet official, none other than the Attorney General. And I will say how we also perhaps plan to deal with this particular issue. So let me start by saying that what Mr. Imbu reported to you a short while ago is exactly my recollection of what transpired. The Prime Minister, as per her usual conduct, was never, did not, and she was never present in the chamber when the Virtual Assets Bill was debated. She was not there, and she likes to make certain appearances, especially during the committee stages, where she would come in at that point in time, ask a couple, 2 questions, to give you, the members of the media and the national population, that she was present in the chamber. The Prime Minister has a habit. She's never present in the chamber. She makes what I would call strategic appearances, especially during the committee stages of a bill. She would ask a couple questions, then leave the chamber and give viewers and listeners the impression that she's present in the chamber. Last week, Friday, was no different. The Prime Minister was not present in the chamber. She came in when the bill moved to the committee stage. And of course, as we prepared for committee, we went through the various clauses. Of course, Mr. Imbu would have given you a full report as to what transpired and why the opposition took a certain position with respect to the various amendments that the government passed during the piloting of the bill by the Minister of Finance. And as the Chief Whip, I would have heard the MP for Diego Martin Northeast, Mr. Imbu, signaling to the Speaker of the House that the Prime Minister also called for a division, and therefore we should call, or rather he should call for a division. And at that point in time, I was taken by surprise when I heard the Prime Minister saying, "Do not point at me." So I looked across because I was wondering what angered or agitated the Prime Minister, that she could have looked across on the other side to tell the member for Diego Martin Northeast, "Do not point at me." And he wasn't pointing at her. He was just gesticulating to the Speaker, "Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister also called for division." And Mr. Imbert simply asked the Prime Minister, "Well, why not? What happened?" And then she immediately retorted, "Because I'm going to cuff you down." That is exactly what transpired. Now, as the chief whip on the opposition side, and then you have Mr. Padarat on the government side being the leader of government business, you would expect that the two persons, myself as the chief whip and the leader of government business, to manage your caucus in a way that it will not bring the House into disrepute or odium. And I was personally disappointed, but not surprised, when I heard my colleague from Couva, is Couva South? Couva South? Yes, Couva South, lying to the population and telling the population that the Prime Minister was being taunted, she was being molested. That's what he does, those are the words that he used, that the Prime Minister was being molested. I mean, how was the Prime Minister being taunted and molested when she was not in the Parliament? She did not contribute to the debate. She was not part of the cut and thrust of debates where sometimes you may say certain things to your colleagues on the other side in jest. She was not there. And to give the impression that what the Prime Minister said was justified in the circumstances because a member of the opposition was taunting the Prime Minister, nothing could be further from the truth. And all I will do this morning is to ask my colleague from Couva South, be truthful to the population. Hold true to your oath of office. Because if you are unable to do so, then you're not qualified to sit in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Because we looked at the Speaker when the Prime Minister said it, because it was heard by many of us sitting close to the Prime Minister, and he did not look in our direction, so one can only assume that the Speaker did not hear what the Prime Minister said. But it's there for all of us. You can go back and you can listen to the recording as to what transpired. And I think it is very unfortunate when the leader of government business, the Minister of Public Utilities, in his capacity as the leader of government business, could come out and blatantly lie to the population by saying that the Prime Minister was subjected to abuse and taunting and molestation. And that's the reason why she behaved in the way that she behaved. And it is also very unfortunate that political commentators who don't know and apparently are part of the UNC's echo chamber can come and make themselves available to repeat the lies by some of the liars that we have in the Parliament. And I want to ask some of those political commentators that you need to demonstrate from time to time that you have the ability to put aside your political biases and to speak truth to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Because when you can do and double down on lies by the government, then it says a lot about your professional integrity. It says quite a lot. And therefore, I want to ask my colleague from Couva South, the leader of government business, to do the honorable thing, protect the dignity of the House of Representatives. We have a sworn responsibility to do so, you on the government side and myself on the opposition side, to manage our caucus in such a way where people and our citizens can have respect for our leaders and our parliamentarians. Do not cover up the Prime Minister, because she is the head of the cabinet and she must have what it takes within her to come out and say, I made an error and therefore I need to apologize. The Prime Minister has not spoken about this particular matter. She has sent out the member for Couva South to repeat lies. And I ask my both colleagues, the Prime Minister and the Leader of Government Business, to sincerely apologize for this egregious error and let us commit to conducting ourselves in a manner that is befitting of the office that we hold, so that our citizens can respect our leaders. I will go to the other unfortunate comment by the Honorable Attorney General, the second highest office holder in the cabinet. Now, I must admit that in the parliamentary chamber, when that statement was uttered, I did not hear it. But it was brought to my attention before the end of the sitting. And I myself was shocked when I heard it. And I will just quote what the Attorney General said based on the audio recordings of the Parliament. And in the recording, the Attorney General purportedly told a member of the lower house, I don't know if it was someone on the government side, on his side, or to a member of the opposition, but this is what we've heard, and the entire world would have heard the Attorney General saying, and I quote, "Hush your mouth, boy. Why you ain't take your little man up in," and it just went inaudible. This is the Attorney General of the Cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, if you were to ask me personally, I will tell you I'm not surprised. Because from where I sit in the Parliament, I hear the Attorney General saying all manners of things. Where I sit in the Parliament or in the chamber, I hear with my ears the Attorney General saying all manners of things that will shock the life of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So what you have heard, or what was captured by a hot mic event, is just to tell you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the kind of people that we have occupying office in this country. He was just caught by a hot mic moment, but it did not surprise me. It did not surprise me. You see, because when you come into office and your main objective is revenge, and your main objective is to get at persons who you regard as your political opponents and nothing else but to uphold the Constitution and the law, then you are going to be exposed one day. As the old people say, one day, Kongote. One day, Kongote. And I can say to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, what the Attorney General said did not surprise me. And it perhaps should wake up the consciousness of all citizens that the Attorney General is someone that you should pay close attention to. Because in one of the very early proceedings in this 13th Parliament, he pointed to some of us in the opposition and he said, I am coming for you, I am coming for you, I am coming for you. And that was enough red flag for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to keep an eye on the Attorney General or the occupant of that office. So you had the Prime Minister making one statement, and we will deal with that, and then you have the Attorney General making another statement that was quite derogatory. And whether it was said to a member of the opposition, whether it was said to a member of the government, it does not take away the seriousness of the statement and how unbecoming it was for the Attorney General and a member of Parliament to conduct themselves in this particular way. You would recall that in the 12th Parliament, a member of the PNM, and I would say former Minister Young, the MP for Port of Spain North St. Anne's West, was caught with another hot mic event. What happened? The Speaker of the House of Representatives then the Honorable Bridget Anisette George, a speaker appointed by the PNM, observing that she, as the Speaker of the House of Representatives, she had a role and a responsibility, a constitutional role and responsibility to protect the dignity of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. And without any prompting on the part of the government or the opposition, the Speaker read out a comprehensive statement in the Parliament condemning Minister Young, as he then was, for certain statements that he made in the Parliament. It went viral. Everyone heard it. Many people were offended by it. And the Speaker, observing that she had a constitutional duty to protect the Parliament, came to the Parliament, I recall, one evening and read out a statement condemning the MP for the statement that he made. Shortly after, Mr. Young, or Minister Young as he then was, read out a comprehensive statement in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago apologizing for what transpired and what happened. After his apology, the UNC, I think it was the MP for Pointe-a-Pierre, David Lee, read out a motion for Mr. Young to be taken to the Privileges Committee for the statements that he made. The Deputy Speaker, who ruled on that motion, did not agree that the matter warranted an investigation by the Privileges Committee on the basis that by the time that motion was read, the minister had already apologized to the Parliament. And the Speaker had already read out a statement condemning the minister for the statement. And that is how this particular matter was dealt with. It wasn't too long ago. I think it happened last year. It wasn't too long ago. The minister apologized. The Speaker, acting in accordance with her constitutional function, read out a statement to protect the dignity of the Parliament. And that was the end of the matter. Today, the Prime Minister threatening members of the opposition, the Attorney General making derogatory statements in the Parliament. And I want to draw the citizens' attention to observe how their conduct is being managed. Look at the differences, look at the posture, and look at the doubling down by members of the government. And I want to tell you today that as opposition chief whip in this Parliament, I think as every other member of Parliament, it is our duty and our responsibility to preserve the dignity of the House so that we can earn the respect as leaders of this country. But more so in my capacity as opposition chief whip, I will file a motion of confidence, a motion of privileges. I will file a motion of privileges against the Honorable Attorney General on this matter. Because he's a stranger to the House, you know. Even though he's entitled to come to the House as a senator, he is not an elected representative. And I am fed up of the Attorney General coming to the elected House and disrespecting elected members of Parliament. It is my duty on behalf of the country, not the PNM, on behalf of the country, to ensure that this matter does not go unpunished. At some point in time, the line must be drawn and persons must be held to account. With respect to Mr. Imbert, if you allow me to go back on Mr. Padarat's doubling down the Prime Minister, Mr. Imbert is right. You would recall very early in this Parliament, Mr. Padarat, or Minister Padarat, made a statement that there's a WASA transformation office And in that transformation office, $3 million was being spent to rent the building. I was taken by surprise because as Minister of Public Utilities, as a minister, you may not know every single thing that is happening, but $3 million for the rental of an office, at least I must have or know something about that. And it caused me, after hearing the statement in the parliament, it caused me to do my own personal investigation into the matter. What I discovered, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, that there was in fact the rental of a building in Scott's Bush Street in Port of Spain that housed the WASA Transformation Office. And as opposed to $3 million as alleged by the minister, it was in fact $14,000 a month. $14,000 a month. And when I calculated 3 years, $14,000 a month, it's $42,000. And I am asking myself, why is the minister, coming to Parliament and making, these statements? $500,000. I do apologize for that. $500,000. Yes. $500,000 a month. Not even $1 million.
3 years.
And for 3 years. That is it. $500,000 for 3 years. Not even $1 million. But he alleged in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago that the government rented a building for $3 million. What did I do? I again wrote asking for the matter to be raised as a matter of privilege against the minister. And I supplied the documentary evidence, the lease, that showed that the building was being rented for $14,000 a month, as opposed to the $3 million as was alleged by the minister. And I supported my request with documentary evidence. And just like Mr. Imbert, I was not even allowed to raise the matter on the floor of the Parliament. I was not even allowed to raise the matter on the floor of Parliament. And it died a natural death. So there's a pattern of behavior. There's a pattern of behavior from the MP for Couva South that the country should take note of. So when he said that the Prime Minister was being molested, the Prime Minister was being harassed, don't take him seriously. It seems as though his main role and responsibility is to double down on lies in the protection of the Prime Minister. The last issue I want to raise, or rather comment on, is the issue of the Minister of Homeland Security. The Minister of Homeland Security saying that he intends to go to the Attorney General to ask for laws to be passed to regulate online commentators, bloggers. And in addition to that, documentary evidence was intercepted where he has called for the revocation of visas by an online blogger or online commentator, online electronic journalist. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very serious matter. I find it very curious because you would know that the UNC used online bloggers and social media commentators to brainwash and lie to the people of Trinidad and Tobago to get into government. They said the worst thing about the leaders of this country using online bloggers, social media commentators. They paid out many social media commentators to brainwash and lie to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So when I heard the Minister of Homeland Security today is saying that he plans to go to the Attorney General to introduce laws to regulate social media commentators and bloggers, it tells you the direction that this government plans to go, the extent to which they plan to go to suppress the expression of free voices in this community, in this country. You will not believe that this is the same government who has 2 social media bloggers who can't account for what they are doing in their various ministries. As a matter of fact, there are 3. One they call Philip Alexander, one they call Anil Roberts, and the other one that they call David Naked. Ghost ministers cannot account for what they are doing in their respective ministries, and all they do on a daily basis is to go on social media and make the most derogatory statements on the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, on members of the PNM, or anyone who dare cross their path, would say the worst thing. And Minister of Homeland Security now threatening to write other countries to revoke the visas of social media commentators or to introduce laws to regulate bloggers and social media commentators. This is nothing but fear and intimidation. It is to suppress the voices that are rising up in this country against the tyranny that is taking place on a daily basis by this government. You see, because this is the same government that fired over 20,000 workers in CPEP and URP and forestry. It is the same government that canceled our Independence Day parade. It is the same government that canceled our fireworks. It is the same government that canceled fetes and still canceling fetes all over Trinidad and Tobago. We just getting up in the morning and hearing of all of these decisions being made, and the Prime Minister saying that she's not prepared to speak to any one of them. And today, they are now attacking the online commentators and bloggers. Tomorrow, it is going to be the journalists and the Calypsonians. That is the direction that they are going, because they have thin skin. They didn't realize governance was a serious thing, and that once you decide to go into government or offer yourself in public service, you will be facing the scrutiny of every single socially conscious citizen and the media. It is the same Minister of Homeland Security. Every time questions are asked in the Parliament, especially during the last budget debate, he invoked national security considerations not to answer questions. And when I pose questions to the Minister of Defense, at every single opportunity in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, he invokes Section or Standing Order 27(1)(g), not to answer questions. So when you are not prepared to answer questions, you're not prepared to answer questions. You invoke the standing orders of the Parliament so as not to speak to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And when you are asked questions, giving you an opportunity to speak clearly to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, today you are now threatening persons who dare express a view that you are uncomfortable with, and saying that somehow they pose a threat to national security. Let me say, the PNM is not endorsing any online threat against any government official or any citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. That is not what we are saying. But we operate in a landscape where citizens can express themselves and participate in the democratic process by going online and highlighting issues and matters of governance in Trinidad and Tobago. And it does not matter whether the Prime Minister or the leader of government business or the Minister of Defense or the Minister of Homeland Security, it does not matter if they are uncomfortable with those views being expressed. But when you are not speaking to the country, and when people are speaking in defense of their democracy, and it offends you, the PNM will not stand by and allow you to muzzle legitimate voices of dissent in this country, and the PNM will not allow you to undermine our democracy. We will not do so. And today, the opposition is sending notice to the government that whilst you run away and not account to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and not speak clearly to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, we will rally all voices of reason and use whatever mechanism is available to us to educate and inform our citizens and to hold you to account. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Gonzalez. Ladies and gentlemen, further to MP Gonzalez's statements, I want to remind you that it was the behavior of this current government while in opposition that prompted an independent senator to bring a motion in the Senate with regards to the pervasive misuse of social media and digital platforms. And it was the PNM government's position at that point in time that to bring any sort of legislative reform would have a real impact on freedom of speech and would border on censorship or be perceived to border on censorship. The action by this government may very well be the end of free speech in this country, and today it may be bloggers. Tomorrow it will be citizens and the media of this country. Can I ask Dr. Gadsby Dolly to join us?
Thank you very kindly. Good morning to the members of the media. Good morning to the viewing public. Today is the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. And I think it's a very apt day, as today the PNM calls on the UNC, specifically Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar and Minister Barry Padarath, to stop trivializing violence against women by using it as an excuse for poor parliamentary conduct. Doing that is reprehensible, it is distasteful, it is disrespectful in the extreme, very disappointing. And this is especially in the context of the UNC just having lost one of their young female councillors in circumstances, very tragic circumstances, which have been said to be linked to abuse and violence. And I want to take this opportunity to follow in the footsteps of our political leader, Penelope Beckles-Robinson, who has issued condolences on behalf of the PNM. I take this opportunity to issue condolences on behalf of the PNM's National Women's League to the family and the friends of Councillor Ramona Victor, who tragically lost her life. Abuse against women is a very serious thing. It's a matter of life and death. And that is why invoking it in circumstances where it is unwarranted is such a grave breach of conduct. I want to say that Kamla Persad-Bissessar has had the honor, it is an honor, to be the country's first and second female prime minister. And with that honor and privilege comes responsibility. And one would expect that Kamla Persad-Bissessar would be an advocate against violence against women. And therefore, it is particularly obscene that in this scenario, abuse is being used to excuse behavior that has nothing at all to do with any level of abuse. If anybody is abusing Kamla Persad-Bissessar, it certainly was not Colum Imbert in the parliament. I sat next to Mr. Imbert, and I can verify, and you can see it for yourselves because he showed it. It is clear for everyone to see the chronology of the circumstances that took place. There was no abuse. There was no hurling of threats. There was no molestation taking place. This was simply a case of misspeaking in the parliament. And the fact is that Kamla Persad-Bissessar misspoke in the parliament. It is as simple and as naked as that. The fact is also that it was unprovoked and unnecessary. You could see for yourselves, the country can see for themselves that this is in fact the case. Kamla Persad-Bissessar was not in the parliament very long. You saw for yourself that she would have entered the parliament chamber after the tea break. And this is not unusual. As was mentioned by my colleagues, the attendance record of Kamla Persad-Bissessar in opposition, I've been in the parliament for 10 years, and I can verify, and anyone can check it, that her attendance at the parliament is generally very poor. And as Prime Minister, it has not changed. So it is not that this is unusual for her to enter the parliament at a late stage. And as has been mentioned, usually when she enters the parliament chamber, she would try to make some type of statement so that her presence is noted there. And it may appear that she has been there all along. That is not so. And that is easily verified by anyone. And the case in point was one of those days. She was not in the chamber, and when she entered the chamber, for no good reason that any one of us can determine, her parliamentary conduct was quite poor, and her utterances showed that. The fact is that Trinidad and Tobago has a culture of violence. That is a fact. And it is something that we are working towards changing. In the education sector, we have spoken about cultural transformation, and it was to build the psyche of our young people, take it away from violent reactions, violent outbursts, to a culture of peace. We have a higher than comfortable murder rate. We have school violence that we have been grappling with for many years. So we understand that this is the culture that we need to change in Trinidad and Tobago. Even under the SOE, the violent crimes continue. And we have seen, in fact, 2 persons detained very recently for allegedly issuing threats to politicians on social media. And in a twist of irony, one of those persons is Kamla Persad-Bissessar herself. So we are looking at what this culture of violence brings to us. We have detained 2 persons in the very recent past for issuing threats, and here we have the scenario of the Prime Minister issuing a threat against another MP, a colleague in the Parliament, and using abuse as an excuse for doing so. This is just simply wrong. When the head of the nation, the Prime Minister, sees it fit to issue threats in the Parliament, then it sends a message to our young people and to our women. I want the country to ask themselves, if the opposite had happened, if it were MP Imbert issuing a threat to cuff down Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar, what would have been the outcome? What would have been the outcry from the public? It is no different. And the fact is that if one misspeaks, one must do the responsible thing and apologize. So I call on the UNC today to stop trivializing violence against women. It is reprehensible that a man in the person of Barry Padarat could take the front to trivialize violence against women when it is such a tragic circumstance even within the UNC, where one of your UNC councillors has been killed in circumstances linked to domestic violence. It is wrong. I call on the Prime Minister to stop hiding behind Minister Barry Padarat. Stop hiding. You are the Prime Minister of this nation. Come forward and speak. You must not only have mouth in the Parliament. Come forward, face the media, speak, do the responsible thing, and own up to your error. I call on the Prime Minister to woman up. Apologize to the House, apologize to the nation, and above all, apologize to the youth of our country and let them know that this is not the way to deal with any issues you may be having at any point in time. I want to turn to two matters of education. One, it is being reported in the media today that there's an issue with a school feeding supplier where lizards have been allegedly discovered in some boxes of food that were to be delivered to particular schools in the central region. And as it has been reported, it is reported, I don't know if it is true, that both the minister as well as the chairman of the National School Feeding Company were not aware of the situation. So we are asking, this is a very critical thing. These lunches, thousands of lunches and breakfasts go to our school children every day, over 62,000 breakfast, lunch, and so on. And we are very concerned about this and calling for an update and an investigation and for the protocols to be followed, because based on the report, this supplier has allegedly had issues before and has not been suspended. So we ask for the immediate institution of the protocols, which would be suspension of the supplier, investigation of the issue, so that this can be cleared up. And the other matter is the back pay for teachers. The media and the nation would recall that in October of 2023, it was announced by the People's National Movement government at that time that teachers would receive a 5% increase in pay as well as their back pay by Christmas of 2023. That was promised by the People's National Movement, and it was delivered by the People's National Movement. Before the meeting office in 2025, another commitment was made to pay teachers another 5% increase. And during the budget of October 2025, this increase was said to be allocated in one of the line items under the Ministry of Education. It was approximately $930 million allocated for the back pay to teachers. At this time, I would like to ask for the update from the Ministry of Education with respect to, one, the increase in pay, and two, the back pay that is owed to teachers as it has been allocated. We would like to know, when would that back pay be paid? Will it be paid before Christmas? We are being inundated with questions, and we would like an update from the Ministry of Education on this matter. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you very much, Nian. Members of the media, we are now moving to your part of the proceedings. The microphone will be passed around to you shortly. If you could just, of course, give your name and the media house you are associated with and representing. And
Ready?
Ready? Yeah.
Hi, pleasant good morning. Timothy Shasto from Guardian Media, just asking on behalf of our colleague who's absent.
Sure.
To question to Mr. Colman, just want to find out, Mr. Embert, will you be escalating your complaint against the Prime Minister, and will you also be referring to the Committee of Privileges?
Well, I don't know about the escalation part. I don't know what that means. But I am giving serious consideration to filing a motion of privilege. If I do, I would hope that the Speaker would treat it with the seriousness that it deserves, and that I'll make my decision tomorrow morning.
Okay. And just before you make a decision, we understand also that there's a culture of parliamentary banter. Just want to find out if you think that this is becoming a bit toxic now.
Well, this wasn't banter. This doesn't fall into that category at all. I mean, if somebody's telling somebody, I will cuff you down. I have not heard threats of violence made in the Parliament in my 33 years, you know. This is the first time I heard a member of parliament, and now we're dealing with a prime minister threatening to cough down another member for nothing. It's not as if it was even provoked. It was for nothing. So that is not banter. Nobody could try to explain that away by saying it's banter. That's simply not true.
Okay, good day. Dylan Deschamps from Newsday. My comment is from Mr. Imbert as well.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll stay here and I'll answer all questions directed to me. Sure.
Well, Mr. Imbert, my comment is regards to the CPO would have given an indication to public servants that they will be getting a 10% salary increase. So I want to get your comment on that as a former finance minister.
Which media house do you?
Newsday, Dylan Deschamps.
Oh, because I was sent a clip of a story on CNC3 last night, which cited an unnamed source, but a senior person apparently, who said that no offer of 10% was put on the table. So I would prefer to see how that plays out before I make any comment on that. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure a lot of us don't know what's going on, because I don't know why CNC3 ran that clip. I don't know who they spoke to, but that's what was said.
Yeah, I think from the reports it was more of a promise and not necessarily like...
Well, I wasn't present. I don't know what took place between, I believe it is the acting CPO or the deputy CPO, because the CPO was out of the country. This is my understanding. So he wasn't here when this alleged offer was made. And I don't know what happened, but I took note of that story on CNC3 last night. Okay?
Yeah, and well, I have a second question. It's open, anyone can answer it. Is the opposition now afraid that they might face some sanctions with seeing as the Homeland Security Minister is writing, asking for people's visas to be revoked?
I'll let Mr. Gonzalez deal with that.
Thank you very much for your question. Let me tell you something. We are not afraid of the UNC. We are not afraid of the Minister of Homeland Security. When it is time to speak, rest assured that the PNM will speak, and we will not be intimidated by Kamala Persad-Bissessar, Barry Padarat, or the Minister of Homeland Security. We will speak and we will not blow in bags.
I wanted to say a related comment. I wanted to make a related comment.
Sure.
Yeah. I just wanted to make a related comment. I don't know if the media or the public is aware, but the commencement of diplomatic relations between the United States of America and the newly independent Trinidad and Tobago took place on the 31st of August 1962. So in other words, diplomatic relations between the US and Trinidad and Tobago commenced on the same day that we became an independent country in 1962. And therefore there have been diplomatic relations between the US and Trinidad and Tobago for, if you do the maths, 63 years. And we will not allow the UNC and the UNC's antics to damage that 63-year-old relationship between our country and the United States.
Hi, yes, this is for Mr. Gonzalez. You spoke about the hot mic moment with Minister Young.
Yes.
And you're essentially calling for an apology for Mr. Imbe. In that hot mic moment...
An apology?
I wasn't involved in that.
No,
Mr.
with what happened with you and Mrs. Persad-Bissessar. With his George Young situation, yes, he came and he apologized to the House, which didn't necessarily say that he apologized personally to Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Did he apologize personally?
I can't recall the extent or the content of the apology, but I recall that he apologized to the House, and if he apologized to the House, then it's an apology to all members of the House of Representatives, which includes the then leader of opposition at the time, because it's the House. And when you misbehave and you misconduct yourself in that kind of way, you don't personalize it. So, for example, Mrs. Persad-Bissessar's comment, it is a disrespect to the House. It is a disrespect to every sitting member of the House. So if she doesn't want to apologize to Mr. Imbert personally, that's entirely up to her, but she should apologize to every elected member of the House of Representatives. We don't personalize these things, you know. You have a duty to uphold the decorum and the dignity of the House, and that is what she offended.
Okay. And
And
another.
so just to respond directly to your question, Minister Young, as he then was, apologized to the House of Representatives.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yes.
One more question too. We were talking about the decorum within the House. And, you know, Dr. Gadsby, Dolly, I would actually like if you had input into this, speaking about women's violence. A lot of words are used: molest, rape, abuse. These, within, you know, someone raped the Treasury, the Prime Minister was molested. We hear these words thrown around within the Parliament and within the media. As we discuss violence against women, is there, you know, do you think there needs to be more of a consideration for the words used? Not necessarily from your side, but the other side as well. Just in general, that maybe there needs to be watch words, then watch what we say.
Let me answer in a particular way. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, I'm not talking about this particular speaker, I'm just talking about the role of a speaker, is to ensure that the standing orders of the Parliament are
But I'm not only talking.
Hold on, I'm just saying that the Speaker plays a very important role in how the House is conducted and the words that members use and they utter on the floor of Parliament to ensure that the decorum and the dignity of the House is always maintained. So it is not only the responsibility of members personally to conduct themselves in a way that will not offend the dignity of the House. The Speaker also plays a role, and that when members step out of line from time to time, the Speaker has a role to play in so doing. I'm telling you, as a member of the opposition, I hear all manners of things being said about the PNM. Just as you said, you rape the Treasury and some of these things. When you use these types of terminology, it minimizes the impact of violence, the use of violence, and the way we speak to each other. And when it becomes a normal part of our behavior and our daily discourse, what sometimes we do as a country, not only as members of Parliament, but as a country, we unwittingly encourage violent behavior. And it is for that reason, as MP Dr. Nyan Gadsby Dolly rightly said, linking it to what we are observing here today, that the Prime Minister should do some introspection and realize the impact of the words that she uttered in the Parliament, and do the honorable thing and commit to doing the honorable thing because it is the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Just a question to Mr. Marvin again. Timothy Shasto from Guardian Media. Any comments on the opposition, on the Prime Minister's meeting today with the highest ranking military officer of the U.S.? She said that talks will focus on the two nations' strong bilateral relationships, strengthening regional stability and regional unity, or the vital importance of countering illicit trafficking of transnational crime organizations. What is your response to that?
My response is that the PNM expects the government and the Prime Minister to communicate clearly to the people of Trinidad and Tobago on these very important matters. Mr. Imbud made a very important point a short while ago that the United States was one of the countries that Trinidad and Tobago established diplomatic relations as soon as we became an independent nation, under the first country, as a matter of fact, under a PNM government. We've had strong, over 62 years established by Dr. Eric Williams, since we became an independent nation. So we value our relationship with the U.S., and I do know, as a former Minister of National Security, the importance of collaborating with the U.S. on issues of national security, regional security, transnational crime, and the collaboration with the United States is very important, and it is one that we should maintain. It is not only cultural, it is economic and what have you. So what we want and what we expect of the Prime Minister is not to invoke Standing Order 27-1G and not speak to the country on these very important matters. You have held important discussions, bilateral discussions with the, a very senior military head, and we expect you, Madam Prime Minister, to speak to the people of Trinidad and Tobago and be very transparent with the people of Trinidad and Tobago on these very important matters. Because when you do so, the bloggers and the social media commentators will get information wherever it is, and they will speak to the people of Trinidad and Tobago when there is a vacuum of information. Thank you.
Just a question for Mr. Imbert, if possible. Mr. Imbert, just based on how things have been panning out between the PSA and the CPU, do you think that the PSA president's promise of getting back pay by Christmas is achievable? And also from your experience as finance minister, does the government need parliamentary approval to pay money considering it wasn't budgeted in the 2026 budget?
I can answer the second part. I can't speak to what the PSA president has been saying or not saying, because I don't have enough information on that. But the second part is that there is no budgetary allocation in the 2026 appropriation for the payment of the increase or the payment of back pay. So if it is to be paid, the government will have to come to the parliament to increase the budgetary allocation for 2026. Now, they could do something unusual, some might even say irregular, and use money allocated for something else to pay it. But that would be quite dangerous, because if they do that, then they would have to replenish wherever they got that money from, and they will have to come to the parliament and do a second budget for 2026. So if it is to be paid, there has to be a second budget for 2026. Okay?
I wanted to find out, why is it that when the two statements were made in the parliament with respect to Mr. Imbe and, well, whoever else was the AG was speaking to, why the PNM didn't make more of it? Why didn't the PNM not call on the speaker immediately to address what was so?
I did tell the speaker, I repeated what the Prime Minister said, and I called upon him to deal with it, but he did not. Okay? Whether he heard me or not, I don't know. But I'm just about...
I mean, whether he heard you or not.
I'm just saying, because when I called for division and the Prime Minister called for division, he did not appear to hear us. And this is why I told him, I've called for division, and so has the Prime Minister. You see how I have my hands like this? That's what happened. And when she said what she said, I said, did you hear that? The Prime Minister just said she will cuff me down. You have to deal with that. And he did not appear to hear me. Or if he did not act on what I said. Okay?
And there was no comment after the AG statement. There was nothing.
Well, I think we found that out later. Yeah, we found that out. You could answer that. You were there.
Yeah, as we found that out later on. The incident that took place with the Prime Minister was heard. Many of us, if not all of us, only found out about the AG statement when it began circulating on social media. And of course, it came back to us as well. Yeah?
Okay.
Ray, you have one more?
Just to pick up on what significance do you all attach to the presence of the head of the Joint Chief of Staff? I mean, in terms of the reports of an imminent strike, what can you attach to his presence? Because people have said this has never happened, you know, such a high official.
Yeah.
and the feeling that he isn't coming just to discuss training exercises, so to speak.
I don't think we should say very much at all, because you recall, I can't remember exactly when it was, about 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of rumors going around, and there was a lot of traffic, people were afraid. And therefore I wouldn't want to comment on this at all. I don't want to fall into that trap that may have been laid for us by the Minister of Homeland Security of making any comment whatsoever. Because I saw what he said, and he said because what people were doing on social media, there was this panic and fear and, bottleneck in Port of Spain and so on. So I don't think we should comment on that at all.
A member of the public, viewing this news conference, sent to me a very interesting photograph and reminded me of a photo that was taken by the Prime Minister in her office in the Red House. And this hangs in the Prime Minister's office. In the Red House, the seat of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Big, bad UNC. So it should not surprise citizens why the Prime Minister continues to behave in this very curious way. It says everything about the Prime Minister. Because if as Prime Minister, she can see the relevance of hanging this in her office, then it tells you what and who Kamala 2.0 is all about. I find it to be quite interesting.
Okay, Dylan Deschamps again from News.
You have the honor of being.
Well, I have two questions if I am permitted to ask. So this question is to Mr. Gonzalez, as former Minister of National Security. What do you make of the 2 U.S. ships currently in the waters between Trinidad and Venezuela?
So what do I make as a
and
minister?
Also the fishermen are also saying that they have been warned.
What do I make? No, I heard a clip of the Minister of Homeland Security saying that he doesn't know anything about any ship in our territorial waters, and he asked for proof, and he asked for the international media that is reporting the matter to take him directly to the ship so that he can confirm whether the ship is in fact in the Caribbean seas or the territorial waters of Trinidad and Tobago. I asked the question in the Parliament at the last sitting. I asked the Minister of Defense that based on international reports, reports on social media, satellite imagery of military vessels in Trinidad and Tobago, land or sea, and the Minister of Defense invoked Standing Order 27-1G and said that based on national security consideration, he cannot answer the question. My response to your question, therefore, is to beg and to ask and to instruct and ask the Prime Minister to instruct her ministers of government to stop hiding and shielding themselves from the standing orders of Parliament and to communicate facts and truth to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As a member of Parliament, I am a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and I want to hear from the government what are the facts where these matters are concerned.
And my final question, with regards to what Dr. Dolly would have said, we have violence against women being trivialized, and there would have been a different uproar had it been a man make the comment towards the Prime Minister. So, seeing that this comment is being made towards a man, do you think that violence against men is also being trivialized? Because we're not seeing the same level of uproar coming if it was a man making a comment against a woman?
Repeat the question.
Sorry, you know,
Violence against men.
against men. You know, if you think that it's being trivialized, seeing as we're not seeing the same level of uproar, given that it's, if it was a man making it against a woman, you know, we'd have had all these groups coming out and saying it's wrong.
Well, I don't know that violence against men really comes into this particular circumstance. I'm not sure if I follow or agree with that part of it. But what I am very sure about is that abuse must never be invoked when the circumstances do not warrant it. We have too much abuse going on and too many women suffering, and all women should stand in solidarity with them. And it is very unfortunate that a man is invoking abuse when that is unwarranted, it is untrue, it is clearly false. Anyone can see it. And it is unfortunate that this is condoned and countenanced by a woman, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago herself.
Could I just add to that? The Prime Minister had said quite early in her tenure that if her ministers engaged in corruption, she was going to bust their head. I didn't hear anybody, y'all didn't seem to have a problem with it.
Of course, we had an issue with the bust their head comment. We had an issue with the kill them all violently comment.
Well, I know that part.
We have an issue with the cuff down comment, and it seems to be a pattern of behavior. Empty the clip, load up the matic. The PNM has been upfront saying that a prime minister or someone who is aspiring to be a prime minister, because that load up the matic was made while the prime minister was then the opposition leader, we have been upfront in saying that these are inappropriate statements for a prime minister or someone aspiring to be prime minister to make. And it is a pattern of behavior that is evident even before Kamla Persad-Bissessar assumed prime ministership for the second time. And therefore, in those circumstances, it is even more evident that the claim of abuse is unwarranted and disrespectful to women. It is not abuse. It is simply Prime Minister now, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, continuing to speak in this violent way while expecting our children in schools to not be violent, and while expecting to speak to those who are out there doing violent acts and saying, do not choose violence. When the Prime Minister in her speech is not only choosing violence, but setting a violent example for all citizens of this nation. That is reprehensible. That is uncalled for. And it is below the standard of parliamentary and even normal behavior expected for any citizen, far less the Prime Minister of this country.
Thank you, Nian, for those words, ladies and gentlemen.
Just wanted
Thank you for
one more
joining
question.
us
Just an
today.
update, please, if we could, on Miss Camille Robinson-Regis. Anybody could answer. We just want to find out how she's doing, and she's good spirits for those of us concerned. Yeah.
MP Robinson Regis continues to have permission to be absent from the...
Okay, just want to find out how she's doing, if she's in good spirits.
To be honest, I could not give you that update right now. We will, at our next presser, I'm sure we will update you.
Okay, and about our constituency, can we, are your colleagues assisting
I
with?
cannot speak on that
Gotcha,
at this point either, right? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening, and we look forward to speaking with you again at the opposition leaders' next press conference.